What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. I know I haven't put any content out in a while, but I got a new product that I have not seen anybody review, and it's the eco-worthy EC100 charger. I'm going to run some tests up against my Chargeverter, the first version, and I haven't seen any videos reviewing this, so I figured I'd put it out there for you guys. I am not being paid. I bought this with my own money. I'm not sponsored. This is all for fun. And I'm going to show you guys the real results. And let's get this thing opened up and see what we got inside. All right, there it is. There's the EC series. So at the bottom of the box, we've got pretty nice charge cable. I believe these are Anderson connectors, but 2-gauge wire. That thing's pretty thick. It's pretty nice. Let's get these out. So there you go. You've got the Anderson connector, and looks like, is that 3/8 lugs? 5/16? We'll find out. I've got eco-worthy batteries, so I'm pretty sure it's pretty standard. Let's take a look at the actual charger. Now, spec-wise, I'll try to throw the specs up here during this part of the video, but spec-wise, this actually can put out 600 more watts than the Chargeverter. The Chargeverter goes up to 100 amps and caps it based on voltage, so it'll do 5,000, what is that, 5,120 watts, and this one claims 5,700 watts or something along those lines, a true 100 amps no matter what the voltage is. So here it is. It feels solid. Wow. You know, obviously all metal. You've got the screen right here and a pretty long leash, and it comes equipped with the L1430 right out of the box. They give you an adapter also to adapt to 30 amp. I've already got one for my other one for a 110. Communication cables for dry contact, state of charge in the box as well. So let me get this hooked up and we'll get going. I also have the old eco-worthy 60 amp charger, and we're going to compare this one to that one. There is a significant difference between these two. This one will not accept one of my inverters. I've got 3 inverters, or I'm sorry, will not accept one of my generators. I've got 3 generators to test with. I've got an inverter generator, that's 110. I've got a 240 volt Predator generator, 3,200 watts, and then my big one's a Predator 7,200 that I've converted to propane. Anyways, let's get the testing going and see what we got. All right, we're rolling. All right, guys, so I got it up and running, and right off the bat, when it's in the off position, not charging, it is much quieter. So if this had to be used as maybe a standby unit over the EG4 Chargeverter, and we'll compare the two in a minute, it definitely is quieter. So I plugged it into my eco-worthy battery bank, and it is showing 48% state of charge. I'm not so sure that you can't have this one with communications and the inverter the EC100 at the same time, because I'm able to do that on mine, and you see up there I still have communications because you're using the RS485 port instead of the CAN port. Now, I did try and plug it into my SunGold battery bank, and I'll show you this before we get started, on the RS485A to see if it would communicate with that, and it does not. And I don't see a way of changing the protocol. I could get in the manual before the video and comment on that if you can. But for now, we'll just start with the eco-worthy. The generator's warmed up now. I'll plug it back in, 48%, and we'll turn on the breaker and see what we got. See if we can pull, you know, full power. So there's an on-off switch to start charging. So let me put the communication cable back in, change this back to 100 amps, go up to 100, 57, 12%, stop at 100, etc. All right, let's hit. This is the start stop. It says AC/DC switch. I guess that's why that confused me. All right, just turned it on. And it should start ramping up. All right, there we go. So it does help. Right off the bat, it is much quieter, significantly quieter than the Chargeverter. I don't know if that means it's hotter, hopefully, internally, but it is pretty whisper quiet right now. And it's ramping up nice and slow. Let's see if we can get the full 100 amps out of this. So my microphone is about at ear level. So hopefully you're hearing what I'm hearing. Okay, so the fans have ramped up even more now that it hit 60 amps. Okay, 70 amps. It seems like every 10 amps the fan speed will increase. All right, we're at 82 amps, 83, 84. $91 amps. All right, so right about here is where the Chargeverter would have quit at 5,120 amps, I believe. All right, 100 amps, 5,350 watts. And it's pretty quiet. I'm gonna let it run a little bit just to make sure, let it run a few minutes. And then we will compare this to the Chargeverter. All right, so we've been running about 2 or 3 minutes. So I'm gonna go ahead and try to see what happens when you just walk it down a little bit and walk it back up. I know on the EG4, on the, I think it's the GC1, it automatically starts from 0 and starts back over, but it looks like this one simply walks down to whatever current you've set. So let's try to walk it back up on the current and see what happens. Let's take it back to 100. Yep, and it walks it back up. So I like that way better than the design on the Chargeverter GC1. Now, I don't know if the new one, I forget what version they're calling the waterproof one or whatever. I don't know if that one does that or not. All right, so it's walking it right back up nice and slow. Let's get back to 100%. I do wish I could just select the current. I don't like that I have to do all this all the time. And this AC/DC switch simply turns it off and on. All right, so we're back to 100 amps, 5,360 watts. But I believe this one will do all the way up to keep 100 amps the entire time. It is fluctuating between 99 and 100. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn this off, turn on the old yellow Chargeverter, let you guys see the difference with the same generator. I just plugged in the Chargeverter, and right off the bat, it is louder. This one's already set to 100 amps. I do like the simplicity, and this thing has been rock solid. So we're gonna kick it on up, and I'll show you what I mean about it not doing 100 amps. Now this one does ramp up rather quick compared to the newer one, I think. But for my generator, it's slow enough. For maybe some lighter duty generators, it might hurt a bit. And let's just let it ramp on up to 100 amps and see if we can get to 100 amps. Okay, so the fan speed seems pretty consistent on the original Chargeverter. I think it has a temperature sensor. I have heard that thing, you know, blowing pretty hard, but I can't confirm all that. All right, so you see we hit 100 amps, then it throttled itself back, 96.2. And if we do the math, well, 95 times 53.8, I believe that comes up to 5,120, or right there close to it. So this one caps itself at 5,120 watts. The EcoWorthy will do 5,700 watts on a 220 volt load. So we're going to swap generators, take it off my big one that you saw, the 7,200 watt. We're going to use some smaller generators and see what we got for performance. All right, guys, so the next test, I'm going to use my Predator inverter generator, which is much quieter, but it's a 120. And then I've got an older Predator 3200 that absolutely would not work with the older EcoWorthy. So let's go in and see how it handles the 110 current between the three. All right, let's start with the EcoWorthy EC100. And we'll obviously have to play with the current, because even if it could do 100 amps, it won't. So it will do 50 amps on the old EG1. So we're going to cycle through and take it to 50 amps. Let's just see what it does. See if the specs are wrong, if I'm wrong, but here we go. Inverter generator. 120 volt output using a L530 twist lock. Okay, it's loading it up. 9 amps, 10 amps. Now that generator is capable of 3,200 watts running. So it should be able to handle 50 watts. I'm sorry, 50 amps. But I don't think the EC1s, the way they've set it up, I'm not sure it won't allow it. So we're at 20 amps now. We're climbing up, 21 amps. All right, so it looks like it's handled the 30 amps. Let's take it on up to 40 amps. There it goes. So I guess I could be mistaken. And the fans are ramping up. Not sure why it wouldn't start at 50 amps. Let's bring it on up to 50 amps then, because that's about max output. It claims 3,200, but with voltage drop on the line, I don't think it can sustain that. All right, it's pushing the 50 amps. As I said, that particular 4300 Predator's only rated at 3,200 output, so we'll see if we can't keep pushing it. See what we got here. See if we can get the full 32 amps. $29. $31. $31.38. All right. So it's actually pushing the 3,200 watts almost. Let's go 60 amps just to see if we can actually hit 32. Because there is going to be some voltage drop in the line. Let's try 61. Let's push it. See if we can't push it to 3,200. It seems as if it's throttling it right at, oh, just kicked out. So about 3,100 watts, or I'm sorry, 3,100 watts is what we could sustain, but that was on the generator. So we'll set this back to 45 and see if it kicks back in. I think my generator's actually tripped. So let's go give that a look-see. Yep, we got an overload alarm on the gen. All right, so the generator did kick out. We're gonna push it up to about 3,000 watts. Let's see if we can sustain that load for a few minutes or so, stress it out. All right, we're gonna swap over to the Chargeverter. Obviously reduce the current to 50 amps. And this one doesn't walk up slow enough. So I think we may show, you know, what happens. The other one, it seemed like when I set it to 50 amps, it took it a second, but then it, you know, took it right away. So let's test this. All right, let's take it to 50 amps. I do think it's going to try to rev up too quick and potentially trip. But, all fairness, let's do the same test. All right, here we go. 50 amps on the Chargeverter. Yep, it tripped right away. So this one's going to take a slow walk. It tripped the Chargeverter. Or if you see in there, see the red light. Let's walk it up a little slower. We'll start with 23 amps. Let it reset, and then we'll see what we got here. All right, so it just kicked in. See if we can't take this slow up to 50. Which is where we had the other. Almost there. All right, 50 amps. All right, it has hit 50 amps on the Chargeverter, so they're both will equally charge, it seems like, on a 110. Let's go 5 minutes like we did on the other and see if it can hold that 3,000 watt sustained load. All right, we successfully sustained the load on 50 amps, and it actually looks like 50.2. I'm not sure why it crept up like that on the Chargeverter, so I'm going to kill this load, and we're going to show you the difference now on the 60 amp version, and if this one can handle the dirty power of the old 3200. All right, I've got the eco-worthy 48 volt, the Gen 1 or whatever you want to call it, their first one. It can only do 60 amps, but it can only do, I think, 30 amps on 110. But the problem with this one, first of all, the controls are a little bit clunky. It does have state of charge, and it does have communication. So I've set it for 30 amps. The way this one works, it kind of cycles through all the different menus. You know, state of charge and charge current. But this one will only do 30 amps, or right there about. So it is doing it on the inverter generator, but I'm about to hook it up to the 3200, the dirty power. When I plug it up to the 3200 watt 240, you'll see what happens. All right, so I'm going to turn this off, kill the inverter generator, and fire up the smaller dirty generator, and I'll show you what we've got. We've got the dirty generator plugged in, the 3200 watt 240. Now this one should definitely be able to do 30 amps. Technically should do about the same, about 50 amps, if this thing will accept the dirty power. So we're going to let it start up. All right, looks like it just started. Charge light's on. Let's see what we got. And it will not do it. It says the charge light's on, but it just keeps cycling. So it's going to make me turn the current way down, and it'll work, I think, at like 20 or 18 amps. Let's give this a go. All right, it just kicked on, and the fans are significantly louder on this one. 18 amps. Let's see if we can push this to 20 amps, which we should easily be able to do. 1,000 watts. All right, let's try to up the amperage. This screen is not nearly as good, just 23 amps. See, will it do 23 amps? Now remember, my inverter generator did upwards of 30 amps. Okay. 23 amps. Now let's see about 26 amps. Nope, just kicked it out around 26 amps. So this one can't handle the dirty power as much as the Chargeverter, and we'll show that one now. Set the current to start at 20 amps. All right, it's charging. We're at 20 amps already. Let's see. Let's go ahead and jump up to, I think this one kicked out at 25. There we are. Let's take it on up to 30. Just quit messing around with it and see what we can sustain. All right, there's 32. Let's go on up to 40 amps, which is getting close. Again, that one's max output with a 240. Let's go 42 amps. Let's see what we got. And that one's max output is 3200 continuous as well. So theoretically, it should be able to push about the same as my 110. So we'll up this. Enter, enter. I gotta go down. Enter. Let's go to 50 amps. Let's walk it up to 50. Yep, so that one's handling 50. Let's see, can we take it up to around 54? Let's just let that as our cutoff, because that's going to be pretty close to max output. Or 53 amps. All right, 53 amp dirty generator. And it's holding. Let's go 55. Now this is pretty close to the max output. This should be close to my 3200 watts. I have to do the math, but this would be, if it sustains 55, we're gonna call that good. Really don't want to push it much past that. 55. All right, I'm gonna see if this will sustain for 5 minutes on 55 amps. All right, guys, the 5-minute timer is complete. On the 55 amps, we put, I don't know, a half a kilowatt. Not sure how accurate that was because I was mucking around with it. So, with the dirty generator, the original Chargeverter and the newer Chargeverter does better. The older, the version 1 60 amp eco-worthy charger, between these two, I would not even buy that. That is pointless. It doesn't do as much. I know I got a good deal on it, but even at $200, I can't recommend it. I would choose the Chargeverter. But final test, will the EC100 handle the dirty power? Remember, the 60 amp, it kicked out at, what was it, 20 amps? Will this do 55 amps, just like the Chargeverter? So here we go. Set it to 55 amps. Now another advantage, guys, of this is I should be able to set this to 55 amps and it's slow walk right on up. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna go through the settings. Fair test, 55 amps on each. All right, turn it on. All right, I heard the generator romp down. Let's see what happens. It's working its way up. We're at 5 amps, 6 amps, 7 amps, going on up. I do like this. This is super nice, guys. Being able to see your wattage output. I haven't seen that. I don't know if the new GC100, there's a couple videos out on those. I haven't watched a lot on that because I'm not interested in that model at all because I don't need the waterproof capabilities. This, so far, this one's pretty capable, and if I had it to do over and I'm replacing one, you know, like if I'm like, hey, I'm buying my first 48 volt charger, it'd be this guy because it can do quite a bit, 2 amps all the way up. So if you need to slow charge a battery from the grid or whatever, so far this seems to be handling it. All right, we're at 26 amps, guys. This is beyond what the original 60 amp model was doing. We're coming on up. And this one is significantly quieter. Yeah, I think we're going to be just fine. Let's see what it says 55 amps is for our output. I did the math earlier and it seemed to be pretty close to 3,000. And with voltage loss, that particular generator, I just rebuilt it. it can sustain 3200 max. So if it can pull 3000 for 5 minutes, I'm happy, because that's more than I would run it anyways. So let's come on up to 55 amps, see how close we get to 3000. This one is, according to the specs, 2% less efficient than the Chargeverter. The Chargeverter showed 94%, I believe, in the specs. The EC100 is at 92% efficiency. All right, there we are, guys. We're at 55 amps and holding, and as I suspected, it's pretty close to 3000 watts. As advertised, 3200 is max sustained on that thing. So just for fun, let's take it up to 3200 and see if it will not kick our generator out. And then we'll take it back down to 55 for the 5-minute test. All right, there's 31. There's 59 amps. I just put a new carburetor, brand new fuel tank on this one. 60 amps. All right, we hit 3200, and that's what it's claiming it can sustain. So with voltage loss, I'm sure we're over that. So let's go back down to 55 for the fair test. We'll enter that and run a 5-minute test and see does it match up. But so far, guys, this has been a really nice unit, and they're go on sale all the time. $500. I think it. I love EG4 products. I've got a 12,000 XP, but I believe this is a contender. This is a contender for more features for the buck, and the screen is beautiful. So we're going to start the 5-minute test, and we're going to come back. All right, guys, we have survived the 5-minute test. So the next thing I'm going to check is the stop-start. So there's the start, and I've got it stopped at 100. Let's take it down to 56% and see, will the generator stop when it reaches 56% state of charge. Enter, enter. Battery stop at 55. All right, start charging at 12%, stop at 56%. We're currently at 55. Now, I know this has to do with the dry contacts, but what if you wanted to set it and go do something else, and you wanted it to just quit running your generator at least, or at least quit charging at 56%? Would it happen? Let's find out. So we got to pull 1 more percent in to see if this will go down. Also, you'll notice down there, it shows the AC voltage. You see it fluctuating between 243, 241, 246. I don't know how accurate that measurement is. All right, it just hit 56%. I don't know if it has to go through to 57%, and then it shuts off. Oh, just shut off. All right, so guys, it does work. I don't have dry contacts on my generator to test this theory, but all in all, I think everything worked really well. All right, guys, hope that review helped you out. This is a really nice unit. All in all, the EC100 is a great unit. I haven't seen any videos on it. Lots of, capabilities. Long-term reliability, it's hard to say. I've been real happy with the EG4 Chargeverter. I would have no qualms against getting that again. I would, however, not buy this. The 60 amp version had so many setbacks as far as capabilities. It won't run on a dirty generator. I have to use an inverter generator, and if I'm going to do that, I'm going to go straight into the EG4 Chargeverter. I'm sorry, the EG4 12,000 XP anyway. So thumbs up for the EC100. This was my recommendation of all the 3 I've owned, and if I was starting out today, I would have no qualms. Like I said, I would buy this. This is my pick and my fave. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I've got some more videos coming if you're interested. Again, paid for it with my own money. No sponsors, no nothing as far as that goes. But if this helps you, how about give a like, comment, let me know what you guys think, and we'll see you on the next one.